That's all I wanna know. You're looking like a joke. Try humor at the most. Steady choking on your shade like a dick in your throat. Well, if you're gonna throw shade my way, maybe you should talk with a little more aim. It's a cold day in hell when they dirty up your name. They don't got no business talking in the first place. I'm freezing.
Before anyone knew his name, Act 1. Before the sold out arenas, before the platinum records, before millions of people would quote his lyrics beneath videos of heartbreak, addiction, anxiety, and loss, I was simply a little boy named Jarad Anthony Higgins. When people talk about Juice WRLD, they often begin with lucid dreams. They begin with the fame. They begin with the records. They begin with the tragedy. The stories rarely begin where the public first notices them. Long before the world heard his voice, his story had already been unfolding in quiet moments that no cameras captured. Jarad was born on December 2nd, 1998, in Chicago, Illinois, before later being raised in the nearby suburb of Homewood. To many people outside of Illinois, Chicago exists almost as a character in American culture. It's a city associated with resilience, opportunities, violence, innovation, segregation, music, and survival. But Chicago is not one story. It's 1,000 of stories happening simultaneously. Jarad's childhood unfolded not in the headlines people often associate with the city, but in a family trying to build stability, structure, and hope. His parents separated when he was young, leaving his mother, Carmela Wallace, to raise him and his older brother. Like countless single mothers across America, she carried the responsibility of providing not only financially, but also emotionally. She wanted to protect her sons from the influence she believed could derail their futures. She worked long hours while also trying to shape the environment inside their home. Religion played a meaningful role in that environment. His mother was deeply spiritual and wanted her children grounded in faith and discipline. Certain music wasn't welcomed in the house. Rap, particularly the kind dominating radio at the time, wasn't something she encouraged. To many teenagers, being told what they cannot listen to only makes them more curious. But in Jarad's case, those restrictions had an unexpected consequence. Instead of immediately consuming mainstream hip-hop, he found himself exposed to music in a different way. He learned piano, then drums, then guitar. Long before he became known for freestyling over trap beats, he was learning melody, rhythm, timing, and musical structure. Those lessons may have seemed ordinary at the time, but they quietly laid the foundation for an artist who would one day blur the lines between rap, pop, and emotional storytelling. Many of history's most influential musicians first learn how music feels before they ever learn how fame works. They weren't chasing audiences. They were simply discovering expression. Music became less about the performance and more about the language, a place where emotions could exist without needing permission. Psychologists have long observed that children frequently express complex emotions through art before they can fully articulate them in conversation. Music gives shape to feelings that don't yet have names. Joy, fear, loneliness, curiosity, hope, confusion. These emotional experiences often emerge long before children possess the vocabulary to describe them. Whether Jarad knew it or not, every hour spent behind the piano, experimenting with instruments, wasn't simply teaching him music, it was teaching him another way to communicate. Outside the home, another education was taking place. The internet was rapidly changing what it meant to grow up. Jarad belongs to the first generation raised almost entirely online. His interests reflect that world. He loved video games, he loved watching anime, he listened to rock bands like Blink-182 and Fall Out Boy.
An extremely eclectic palette of music when you were growing up.
Everything from Ozzy to Kid Cudi to Sosa, Travis Scott, motherfucking Fall Out Boy, motherfucking
That's what's up.
Escape the Fate.
Fall Out Boy's my son's favorite band, by the way.
They fucking want to write songs with me. That's crazy as
You
fuck.
gotta make that happen, man.
Hell yeah.
Alongside hip-hop artists, his influences were not confined by genre in the way previous generations often were. The internet had collapsed those boundaries. A teenager could move effortlessly from heavy metal to Chicago drill, from Japanese animation to southern rap, all in the span of an afternoon. The cultural mixture would eventually become one of the defining characteristics of Juice WRLD's music. He didn't see emotional rock music and rap as opposites. To him, they were simply different dialects of the same language. Friends remembered him as funny, creative, curious, quick-witted, someone who can make people laugh almost effortlessly. It's striking how often this appears in the stories of artists remembered for deeply emotional work. The people closest to them frequently describe someone who loved making others smile, public sadness, and private personality, or rarely as simple as they appear from a distance. As Jarad entered adolescence, another transformation began. Like many teenagers, he started searching for identity. Adolescence is one of the most psychologically significant periods in human development. It is the stage where young people begin asking questions that will quietly follow them for the rest of their lives. Who am I? Where do I belong? What makes me different? Who do I want to become? For some, those answers come through sports. For others, academics, faith, friendships. For Jarad, those answers increasingly became music. By middle school and high school, he was writing lyrics, experimenting with melodies, and absorbing inspiration from artists who wore emotion openly. The rise of artists like Kid Cudi had already begun changing the emotional vocabulary of hip-hop. Cudi proved that vulnerability could exist alongside confidence. He spoke openly about loneliness, depression, and searching for meaning. Other artists expanded those conversations in different directions. Jarad wasn't simply listening to songs. He was studying possibility. He saw that music could be honest, that rap didn't always have to portray him as invincible, that pain could become poetry. As the years passed, another realization quietly emerged. He wasn't just consuming music, he was creating it. What started as curiosity became habit. What became habit slowly transformed into purpose. And purpose has a remarkable way of reshaping a person's future. There is a temptation when looking back at the childhood of famous people to search for signs that greatness was inevitable. We highlight every talent, every small success, every encouraging teacher, and every childhood hobby as though history had already been written. But life doesn't unfold that neatly. Nothing about Jarad Higgins' childhood guaranteed superstardom. There was no promises, no certainty. Only a young man with imagination, discipline, and an unusual ability to translate emotion into words. Years later, Millions of listeners would describe Juice WRLD as someone who understood exactly how they felt. Perhaps that gift didn't suddenly appear the day he stepped into the recording booth. Perhaps it began much earlier, in a quiet home where a young boy first placed his fingers on the piano key, in long afternoons spent discovering music on one instrument at a time, and late night listening to artists who reminded him that vulnerability could be strength. Long before the world called him Juice WRLD, he was simply Jarad, a son, a brother, a student, a dreamer. And although neither he nor anyone around him could have imagined what was coming next, the foundation had already been laid. Because sometimes the most important chapters of a person's life are the ones no one is watching. And for Jarad Higgins, the world was about to start paying attention.
Today I'm under 24. Where I come from, niggas usually don't make it out alive. Thanking God for everything, so many blessings in my life. Still keep a pipe, cause niggas love to die. I just ain't like Mariah. Everywhere I go, get the fire. A lot of old niggas hate on the young niggas, it's time for them to retire.
Act 2. Finding his voice. There's a moment in almost every artist's life, a moment so ordinary that no one notices it while it's happening. Not because it lacks importance, but because history never announces itself. It doesn't arrive with flashing lights or newspaper headlines. It begins quietly in a bedroom, basements, garages, school cafeterias, parking lots. It begins with someone deciding, I think I have something to say. For Jarad Higgins, that moment didn't happen in a recording studio. It happened long before anyone knew his name. By the time he reached high school, music had already become more than a hobby. It had become part of his identity. Like many teenagers, he was trying to answer one of the oldest questions in human history. Who am I? For some, the answer comes through sports. For others, academics, relationships, faith. But for Jarad, that answer became creation. There is something fascinating about adolescence that psychologists have studied for decades. During these years, young people begin experimenting with different versions of themselves. They try on personalities, friend groups, and ambitions in an attempt to discover which version feels most authentic. Most of those experiments are temporary. Very few become destiny. Music became Jarad's. He began writing lyrics, recording songs, uploading music, not because he knew millions of people would hear them, but because creating them made sense of emotions that often didn't. For many artists, songwriting begins as communication with an audience. For Jarad, it often seemed to begin as communication with himself. Long before listeners analyzed his lyrics, he was using them to understand his own thoughts. That distinction matters because there's a difference between writing songs to impress people and writing songs because you don't know what else to do with your feelings.
Why should people care about Juice WRLD? Why should people care?
I feel like they should care about me because I care about them. So I just want the same energy reciprocated, back to me. So, plus, why wouldn't you care about Juice WRLD? It's Juice WRLD.
Around this time, another revolution was taking place, not in music itself, but in how music reached people. For decades, aspiring artists depended on record labels. Executives decided who deserved an opportunity. Radio stations decided what people heard. Gatekeepers determined whose dreams survived. Then came the internet. Platforms like SoundCloud changed everything. For the first time, a teenager with a laptop, a microphone, and enough determination could upload a song and reach listeners across the world without asking anyone's permission. It created opportunity, but it also created unprecedented competition. Millions of songs, millions of artists, millions of voices, all hoping to be heard. Standing out became harder than ever. Ironically, authenticity became one of the few things algorithms couldn't manufacture. The artists who resonated weren't always the ones most polished. They were often the most honest. Jarad understood that instinctively. He wasn't trying to sound like everyone else. His influences alone made that impossible. He listened to hip-hop, but he loved rock music. Artists like Blink-182 and Fall Out Boy. He admired emotional storytelling just as much as technical rapping. To previous generations, those genres occupied different worlds. To Jarad's generation, they existed on the same playlist. That blending of influences would become one of the defining characteristics of Juice WRLD's music. His melodies carried the emotional weight of alternative rock. His cadence belonged to hip-hop. His vulnerability felt almost conversational. Instead of presenting himself as untouchable, he presented himself as human. And humanity has a way of cutting through noise. Somewhere along this journey, Jarad chose a name, Juice WRLD, inspired in part by the film Juice, while expanding the idea into something larger than a single movie. A world, a universe, an identity that could grow alongside him. Stage name often function like masks, but sometimes they become mirrors. They allow the artist to become more honest than they ever felt comfortable being under their own names. As Juice WRLD, Jarad wasn't pretending to be someone else. He was giving himself permission to reveal parts of himself that everyday life often encouraged people to hide. That emotional openness became his greatest strength. As he continued recording, another remarkable ability became impossible to ignore. He could freestyle, not casually, not occasionally, exceptionally.
I wonder if my habits will kill me. I don't know why, but I get that.
Friends began noticing that melodies and lyrics seemed to arrive almost effortlessly. Hours of practice had quietly built a mind capable of connecting rhythm, language, memory, and emotion in real time. To outside observers, it looked like magic, but creativity rarely appears from nowhere. It usually is preparation meeting opportunity. Every instrument he had learned, every song he had listened to, every lyric that he had written, every hour spent practicing was quietly preparing him for moments that audiences would later describe as genius. One recording became another. One upload became another. One fan became 10, then thousands. None of it happened overnight. Although success often appears sudden, it is usually built upon years that nobody watched. Looking back at it now, it is tempting to believe superstardom is inevitable. But there is illusion success creates. For every artist who becomes famous, there are thousands whose story unfold almost identically until they don't. Talent alone has never guaranteed recognition. Timing matters, opportunities matter, luck matters. And perhaps most importantly, being ready when opportunity finally arrives. By 2017, those opportunities were getting closer. The songs became stronger, the audience was growing, industry executives had started paying attention. But none of them, not the fans, not the labels, and perhaps not even Jarad himself, could fully understand what was about to happen. Because somewhere among the dozens of songs he had created was one record that would alter the course of his life forever. A song about heartbreak, a song about memory, a song that transformed private pain into something millions of strangers would recognize as their own. Its name was Lucid Dreams. And with it, Jarad Higgins would disappear from relative anonymity. The world was finally about to meet Juice WRLD.
She told me it would take. Break my heart, oh no, she. Fuck living, I'ma drown in my soul. Fuck giving, I'ma take, not borrow, and I'm still giving. Still losing my mind.
When someone dies, the story usually ends. The obituary is written. The funeral is held. The flowers begin to wilt. Life moves forward. Eventually, the world forgets. But every so often, someone leaves behind something that refuses to disappear. Not because they lived the longest, not because they accomplished the most, but because they articulated something that people are still trying to understand. Jarad Higgins died at 21 years old, an age where most people are still discovering who they are. Most of us spent our early 20s making mistakes that only a handful of friends will ever remember. Jarad spent his making music that hundreds of people would carry with them for years after he was gone. It's one of the cruelest ironies imaginable. The older he gets in our memory, the younger he remains forever. Every birthday we celebrate, he never reaches. Every milestone his fans experience, a graduation, marriages, children, careers, he remains 21, frozen in time. For many fans, accepting that reality has been difficult, not because they refuse to believe he died, but because his voice never stopped speaking. Within months of his passing, previously unreleased music began reaching listeners. New songs, new verses, new melodies, pieces of a life that had already ended. It created an unusual experience. Fans found themselves grieving someone while simultaneously hearing him for the first time. Every release felt like both a gift and a reminder. The excitement of hearing a new Juice WRLD song was always accompanied by the realization that there would never be another interview explaining its meaning, never another live performance, never another freestyle, never another evolution of the artist himself. The catalog continued growing, while the person behind it could not. Few artists leave behind such an enormous archive of music. Friends, producers, and collaborators have spoken publicly about how often Jarad recorded. Creating wasn't something he occasionally did. It was how he processed life. Some people speak to therapists, others confide in friends. Jarad made songs, hundreds of them, perhaps thousands. Each recording captured a moment that otherwise would have disappeared forever. That extraordinary body of work has become one of the reasons conversations surrounding his legacy continue today. The legacy is more complicated than streams, or chart positions, or platinum plaques. Those things measure popularity. They don't measure impact. Impact is harder to quantify. How do you calculate the number of panic attacks someone survived while listening to your music? How do you measure the comfort a stranger found in knowing someone else understood their heartbreak? How do you assign statistics to hope? You can't. Some of the most important consequences of art are invisible. They're carried quietly inside headphones, late at night, driving home after work, walking alone, sitting in a bedroom wondering whether tomorrow will feel different than today. That's where Juice WRLD continues to exist for many people. not as a celebrity, but as a companion. His openness helped shift conversations within hip-hop. For decades, vulnerability often occupied an uncomfortable place in rap music. Strength was expected, confidence was rewarded, pain existed, but it was frequently hidden behind aggression. Artists before him had certainly spoke about depression, loneliness, addiction, and anxiety. Kid Cudi helped redefine emotional honesty. Kanye West challenged conversations in his own way. Others expanded those conversations. Juice WRLD belonged to that evolving lineage. But what distinguished him was how naturally emotion flowed through everything he created. He didn't seem to separate emotional songs from commercial ones. To him, they were often the same thing. He normalized conversations that previous generations sometimes avoided. Young men cried openly to his music. They admitted fear. They admitted loneliness. They admitted heartbreak. Not because Juice WRLD invented vulnerability, but because he made vulnerability feel less lonely. His influence can now be heard across modern music. Artists continue blending rap with melody, rock with hip-hop, singing with confession. Personal journals transformed into chart-topping records, whether consciously or unconsciously. Many of them are building upon foundations that artists like Juice WRLD helped strengthen. Still, there is another part of his legacy that deserves equal attention. His history forces difficult conversations about addiction, not comfortable conversations, not simplified conversations, difficult ones. Because addiction rarely begins with the desire to destroy oneself. It often begins with the desire to escape something that already hurts. Pain and trauma, anxiety, depression, fear, loneliness. The substance may change. The underlying human search often does not. That doesn't erase responsibility, nor does it reduce complex public health issues to a simple explanation. But it reminds us that behind statistics are people. Behind headlines are families. Behind celebrity stories are human beings. If there's anything Jarad Higgins consistently offered through his music, it was honesty. Not perfection. Honesty. He never claimed to have solved the problems he described. He simply refused to pretend they didn't exist. Perhaps that's why listeners trust him, because authenticity has become increasingly rare in an age where so many feel pressured to appear flawless. Ironically, the imperfection he feared revealing became the very reason millions connected with him. And maybe that's one of the greatest lessons his life leaves behind. People rarely remember us because we appeared perfect. They remembered us because we were real. Today, years after his passing, new listeners continue discovering his music. Teenagers who were children when he died now press play for the first time. Others return to albums they've heard 100 times, hundreds of times, finding new meaning in familiar lyrics because life itself has changed. Heartbreak sounds different at 30 than it did at 17. Grief sounds different after losing someone you love. Hope sounds different after surviving despair. The songs remain the same. We change. And somehow, they continue meeting us wherever we are. Maybe that's what great art has always done. It doesn't simply entertain. It accompanies us. As this story comes to an end, it's tempting to define Jarad Higgins by the tragedy that concluded his life. History often remembers dates. December 8, 2019, 21 years old. A life cut short, but perhaps reducing him to the day he died misses the very thing he spent his life trying to express. He wasn't simply documenting pain, he was documenting humanity, its contradictions, its fears, its hope, its longing to be understood. The little boy who first learned piano in Illinois could never have imagined that one day his voice would travel across the continents, that strangers would tattoo his lyrics on their bodies, that parents and children would cry to the same songs for different reasons, that millions of people he would never meet would one day say, "You helped me." Not because he had all the answers, but because he wasn't afraid to ask the questions. Who am I? Why do I hurt? Will this feeling ever end? Can someone understand me? Those questions belong to all of us. And perhaps that's why Jarad Higgins continues to matter. Not because he was larger than life, but because he reminded us, even in moments of extraordinary success, that every human being is still searching for peace. The world met him as Juice WRLD. But behind the platinum records, behind the sold-out arenas, behind the headlines, there was always a young man named Jarad Higgins. A son, a brother, a friend, an artist, a human being. And while his life ended far too soon, his voice continues to do what it always did best, to remind people that they are not alone.